doesn't like a good cult? You know, cults, to me, I'm very intrigued by cults. Are you intrigued by cults, Stacey?
I am. And I look in our society, I think we have tiny little cults that are, acceptable. So yeah, I'm very interested in them.
Yeah, we do. There is a lot of that where it's like micro cults, if you will,
Yes.
I think in some cases. And they can get kind of scary. This one, not in the United States, but it's demanding a lot of attention just because of the what word am I looking for here? The volume of deaths, the weight that it holds. In terms of horrible behavior. The Good News International Ministries, otherwise known as the Malindi cult, I believe is how it's enunciated, founded by Paul Mackenzie in 2003 in Kenya. So in case you were looking for a cult to join in 2003 in Kenya, you missed your opportunity because he is in jail now because he wasn't a very good cult leader.
No.
That's something you don't hear much. You don't hear, hey, yeah, I was in that cult for all those years. Man, that was a good leader. I like that.
But you know what, Tony? I've got a question for you. Isn't the point of having membership to a group to keep your members alive? Usually,
unless your goal is to kill them.
Okay.
Which I don't know what the deal was with this cult. Why, the deaths seem to be like a selling point with this guy. But I would think normally it is because you want money. You want people to work for you for little to no money. And basically you want to control a whole large group of people to get them to do what you want whenever you want because they believe you are the leader and you have either you are God or you have some sort of connection to the God or spiritual being that they all believe in. And at the end of the day, when they all die, nothing to worry about because your cult leader said it's all good. He has that direct connection to God, so you should probably believe in him. It's what we saw with like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. Yeah. They had that direct connection. He was hearing voices, she was hearing messages too. I mean, it's the tenets of any sort of cult. This guy apparently started out as a cab driver quite a ways back. And was actually fined for his ministries because he was preaching to people in the cabs way back in the day in 1997. And he was fined for his sermons, but acquitted due to lack of evidence. Now, why was he fined for preaching in a cab in Nairobi? I don't know. Probably against some sort of, law, regulations of what you're deemed to be appropriate to do when you have people in your cab. But that's where it started. It started as the kind of crazy cab driver preaching to people. When that didn't work, it was time to start the cult, which he did do. And this thing has been in existence for quite some time. The problem being a lot of people have died as being part of the cult because one of the cult's main tenets is starvation. And, when they say you starve yourself to, you're going to get closer to God, I guess there is some truth to that because you're going to die at some point. And if you believe that's where you're going, I guess that kind of gets you closer, if you will. The death
it does cut down on the catering costs of get-togethers, doesn't it?
You wouldn't have to feed your people. I would imagine that is an expense of most cults. Because I think a lot of cults, it's kind of an all-inclusive thing. It's like a resort from hell where, you get all the stuff, you get your needs met to a certain extent. But this one, not so much. They cut the catering bill and went with, don't eat. The death toll from the tragedy that they've been adding up thus far in Kenya is, as of this recording, 201. However, 600 people are still missing.
Jeez.
I am so fascinated how one person, he started in a cab, didn't really work out so well, somehow convinced almost 1,000 people to join him on his massive 800-acre property to be part of this group.
I just don't understand how, we've seen charismatic leaders. We've seen charismatic movie stars and people that you would follow to the ends of the earth. But I think at some point, wouldn't common sense kick in that, Garth Brooks wants me to starve myself so I can get closer to what. No, you go, you know what? He's a great artist. He's a fabulous performer, but I'm going to draw the line somewhere.
He's not the personality,
How do these
though.
people cross that?
It's not just like, hey, you're famous, let me do whatever you say, because this guy certainly wasn't famous. You can be anybody off the street. It doesn't take a celebrity. It just takes the right type of individual that is somehow cunning enough to make you believe. I think if Garth Brooks said, to stop eating tomorrow, very few would do. Maybe you'd have a couple. But if you had someone that people seem to go to the ends of the earth on, and will follow blindly no matter what they say, you'd have to find a more charismatic person in history. I'm not trying to be political here, but I think Donald Trump could probably ask a lot of people to do that, and they would. I'm not saying
he has.
I'm not saying pro. I'm not saying anti. I'm just saying he has that power, and people have that sort of. Not everyone, but some people have that sort of kind of strange relationship with an individual that they've never met. There's a sort of power there, and I don't know what that is. But there's other leaders, there's other people in history who certainly have had that as well.
Take a look at Hitler. How Hitler got so many people to do just horrific things just by asking them to do it and ordering them to do it.
And sometimes it happens because you have no choice and you need to go along for your own survival. Other times people are just so dedicated to what they believe is the right cause. And if this person who you trusted for everything is telling you something that is right, or you believe they've always been right on everything, well, why would they be wrong if they're telling you to do this now? It would then have to put into question every single belief that you've had in this individual for all that time could possibly be incorrect. And it changes your narrative so dramatically that it will be far more easy to go along with drinking the Kool-Aid than it would be to question your judgment over the last however long you've been following someone. So
we've seen so many people in even the podcast stories that where they just blindly follow and don't seem to be using their own critical thought. They're not stepping back and saying, wait a minute, I don't think this is right. No, they have gone full in down the rabbit hole, and they are there for all of it.
Well, it certainly has worked for this guy for quite a while, despite claiming to have shut down his church in 2019 and moved to the forest for farming. Mackenzie, along with his wife and 16 others, are now in custody. By the way, that former property, that 800-acre property, it's basically filled with mass graves.
Oh, jeez.
Is what they are finding. Autopsies on over 100 bodies determined cause of death, including starvation, suffocation, strangulation, and blunt force trauma. The victims allegedly were ordered by their leader, Pastor Paul Mackenzie, to starve themselves to meet Jesus. The bodies that are being unearthed in the mass graves show signs of starvation. So, I mean, the thing that comes to mind when I think of mass graves and starvation is the Holocaust. If you've ever watched any of those videos, I don't know if they show them to children anymore, if it's too much of a trigger to deal with the reality of the world that we've lived in. But I remember being shown those movies in, I think, elementary school, and it was horrifying to watch, seeing those things. And I think people should see them so they can understand the power that some charismatic people hold and how far they can go with extreme beliefs.
Extremely disturbing. And just to know that this has happened in the past and now here we are again. We don't know how big this story is going to get. I also read somewhere about possible organ harvesting taking place. So there might have been an underground, if you will, kind of an organ black market of sorts.
Or as we call it here in the States, a side hustle. His side hustle.
Right?
His side hustle was harvesting organs, it looks like. Local media have reported some bodies had missing internal organs, which would, I don't know how much money internal organs go for that have been starved to death and likely shut down. But I would imagine maybe some of it was going on Some of the other causes of death, well, here's where you probably get the healthy organs. Not starvation, suffocation, strangulation, and blunt force trauma are also some of the causes of death that they're finding on the hundreds of bodies on his cult farm. Rescue operations are ongoing on his property. However, the exact number of survivors rescued is not currently known.
And I did read that even some of those who were rescued from his clutches, they still won't eat. They are refusing any nourishment because they are so believing that eating will cause them to not meet Jesus. So it's going to be something where they're going to need absolute care for quite some time after this.
And I imagine some will still die because you get so far into somebody's head. Or they get into your head and it's like they tap into like core beliefs. It's not just, wants or needs. It's beyond needs. It's core survival. And if your religious leader that you believe is right on everything is infallible and they're telling you something like that, good luck breaking that. Some people will come out, some will not. As many survivors have been found in extremely weak states on his farm, unable to walk without assistance. Due to the prevalence of cults in the religious society of Kenya, law enforcement is questioning other religious leaders about potentially misleading teachings and human rights violations. So this is a country that is ripe with some cultish behavior that's going on. And people ultimately searching for something. Something is definitely missing in that society. If a land of cults is what it's turning into, that's what you typically see in areas with individuals who are missing something very deep in their soul, and they need some sort of guidance. I'm going to guess that's why you have that level of cultiness, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
In response to the tragic events, the president there has formed a commission to investigate the circumstances leading up to the deaths and recommend actions against any institutions that failed to act. Mackenzie was previously charged in connection to the deaths of children in his church on a separate case that's ongoing. I guess it's not quite like the U.S., where if you get charged in the deaths of children, you're behind bars. They let him hang on at his farm and continue to do his thing.
Wow.
So
they could have prevented this.
It looks like it could have been prevented in many ways, shapes, and forms. But how do you prevent people's belief systems, I guess, is the other thing. And churches and things like that. I know in the U.S., obviously, very protected. I would also, I'd be very curious if we did a deeper dive into religious practices in the United States. And there's a lot of one-offs. If you notice, in some areas, especially in the South where I live, you drive into almost any community, you're going to have a lot of churches, and some are big and some are really small, like really small. And usually the smaller it is, it's not so much, hey, we're more free. It's like, no, we're more controlling. It's more like there's one leader and there's 20 of you, and we are really going to dictate exactly what's going on. I mean, there are things like this, maybe not necessarily the 800 mass graves. That's for funeral homes, which we've learned in the last couple of years. But I would not be surprised if we see more of this sort of thing around. But it's protected, and it's in the name of a religion. And it's scary what you can get people to do when you involve God.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, it's like it's a drug. It really is. And if you go up against it, you're basically sending yourself to hell. That's what some of these people believe, and it's we've seen there's a diversion from religion in Generation Z. A lot of them don't want anything to do with religion. Yeah. But when we look at our parents, they dive more into it, it seems. So it's just really a very strange cross section of the world right now.
So if you do go to Kenya and there's like, the excursion list that you get, like, hey, let's go this, the doomsday cult, that is one, anything involving Paul Mackenzie. Avoid it. It is no longer an option for your tourist destination travel. Lots of other good things to see.
Murder in the morning.
Not the cult, though. Don't drink anything there. Don't have any snacks. Don't even go to the vending machine. You got to be careful with the cults.
From the Hit Killers podcast.